A trail of faint blue light pulsed along the floor as the human man, Davin, stepped off the small transport craft. His boots crunched softly against the glassy, iridescent surface, and the sound echoed faintly in the stillness of the Iridani reception chamber. In his hand, he carried a single flower plucked from a distant earth garden, a delicate lily-like bloom with petals that seemed to catch the ambient glow of the alien environment. Lisha, a high-ranking Iridani envoy, approached him cautiously, her long, pale fingers clasped behind her back. Her crystalline gaze studied him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Iridani's ceremonial garb shimmered faintly with the ambient light, flowing like liquid silver over her slender form. Behind her stood another Iridani, Vaer, his features sharper and his stance more rigid, clearly more skeptical of this human newcomer than his colleague. "So, this is your offering?" Lisha asked, her tone measured but not unfriendly. Her voice carried the lilt of a language not meant to be spoken by human tongues, though she'd practiced for years to perfect the trade dialect. Davin nodded, his expression calm, though his grip on the flower's stem tightened slightly. "It's a gift," he replied, his own voice level. "Where I'm from, it's a way to show respect. To start a conversation." "A conversation," Vaer echoed, his tone bordering on derisive. "You come here, bearing nothing but a fragile plant, and you expect us to consider this, what, a gesture of goodwill?" Lisha shot Vaer a warning glance. "It's an interesting choice," she said, turning her attention back to Davin. "We are unaccustomed to such symbolic offerings." "Unaccustomed, maybe," Davin said with a faint smile, but not incapable of understanding. "I mean no insult if that's what you're thinking. I came with this flower because it's something simple, something real. No ulterior motive. Just a way to say, hello, I'm here." He held it out to her. For a long moment, Lisha didn't move. Her eyes flicked from the flower to Davin's face, reading him as best she could. Finally, she reached out and took the delicate bloom. It looked almost comical in her hand, the contrast between its fragile petals and her strong, elongated fingers. "It is unusual," she said softly. "But thank you." Vaer frowned. "You're really accepting that, Lisha?" "We are here to learn," she replied evenly, "not to judge every human by our own standards." Davin exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing a fraction. "That's all I'm asking. I'm not here to impress or to make demands. I just want to understand." The tension in the chamber lessened and Lisha nodded. "Then let us begin," she said. "If you have no objections, I will show you the city. You may ask your questions." "That would be great," Davin replied. "But, do you mind if I bring a friend along? He's waiting outside." Lisha blinked in mild surprise. "Another human?" Davin shook his head. "No, another alien, actually. Not from here, he's from another colony. We've worked together for years." Lisha exchanged a glance with Vaer, who looked skeptical. "A colleague of yours?" Lisha asked. "Yeah," Davin said. "His name's Kale. I trust him completely. He's good people." "Bring him in," Lisha said after a moment. "If we are to understand each other, it's best to meet everyone involved." Davin turned and gestured toward the open craft behind him. A moment later, a tall, lean figure stepped out, his deep green skin faintly luminescent under the chamber's light. Kale's eyes, a bright amber, flicked around the room with a mix of caution and interest. His movements were fluid, confident but not aggressive. "Kale, these are the Iridani," Davin said. "This is Lisha, their envoy, and her colleague, Vaer." Kale inclined his head respectfully. "Honored to meet you. I hope our presence isn't too intrusive." Lisha regarded Kale with measured curiosity. "It is unexpected," she admitted, "but not unwelcome, provided you are here in good faith." "We're here to help bridge the gap," Kale replied. "Davin and I have been through a lot together. I wouldn't have come along if I didn't believe this was worth doing." Lisha's lips quirked in a subtle smile. "Very well. Follow me, both of you." As they left the chamber, Vaer lingered a moment, his sharp gaze following them. "I hope you're right about them, Lisha," he murmured before falling in step behind the group. The city was unlike anything Davin had imagined. Towers of translucent crystal rose from the ground like frozen waterfalls, catching and refracting the light in every direction. The streets were lined with plants that glowed softly, casting a gentle radiance over the smooth pathways. Iridani moved gracefully between the structures, their forms varying in size and color, but all sharing a certain ethereal quality. Lisha led them through bustling market squares and quiet gardens, pointing out various features of Iridani culture. "This is our Hall of Ancients," she explained as they approached a massive structure that shimmered like an opal under the sunless sky. "It's where we preserve the histories of our people. Each panel tells a story, some spanning thousands of years." "It's beautiful," Kale said, his voice low with reverence. "I can see why you take pride in it." Davin stepped closer to one of the panels, tracing its edge with a fingertip. "The craftsmanship is incredible," he said. "I've never seen anything like it." Lisha watched them with a faint smile. "It is one of our most treasured sights. I am glad you can appreciate it." Vayer, who had been trailing behind them, finally spoke up. "Appreciation is one thing. Understanding is another. You admire our work, but do you comprehend the meaning behind it?" Davin turned to face him, his expression calm. "That's why I'm here. To learn. To listen." Vayer's gaze softened slightly, though his posture remained guarded. "Then listen well. The Iridani have endured much to create what you see. It is not simply art, it is our identity." "I understand that," Davin said quietly, "and I respect it." Kale nodded. "We're not here to change who you are. We're here to find common ground. We all have histories, struggles. Maybe by sharing them, we can build something better." For a moment, the group stood in silence, the weight of their words settling over them. Then Lisha stepped forward, holding the flower Davin had given her. She gazed at it thoughtfully before turning to him. "This gift you brought," she said. "It may seem small, but it carries significance, doesn't it? A gesture meant to open doors rather than close them." "That's exactly it," Davin said. "It's not about how big or impressive it is. It's about the intent behind it." Lisha nodded slowly. "Then let this be the beginning of something new. Not as human and Iridani, but as individuals seeking understanding." Davin smiled. "I couldn't have said it better myself." As they moved on through the city, their initial tension began to fade. Small exchanges, shared observations, light jokes broke through the formality. Vayer, though still reserved, no longer looked at the newcomers with suspicion. Kale proved to be a skilled listener, drawing out details of Iridani culture that even Davin hadn't noticed. And Lisha found herself drawn to the sincerity of their words and actions. By the time they reached the city's central plaza, the flower Lisha held no longer felt like a strange human offering. It was, in its own way, a symbol of what could grow between them if they nurtured it carefully. Davin and Kale exchanged a glance, then turned to Lisha and Vayer. "So," Davin said, "where do we start?" Chapter 2, The Language of Light. Lisha brought Davin and Kale into a large, softly lit chamber filled with shimmering, floating symbols. It was unlike any library Davin had ever seen. Instead of books, rows of crystalline pedestals emitted holographic images, written words suspended in midair, rotating slowly. When Lisha touched one of the symbols, it expanded and formed glowing shapes that shifted and reformed into patterns. Each pattern represented a word, a phrase, or sometimes a complex concept. "This is how we preserve our language," she explained. "It is living light. Each figure changes as our understanding grows." Davin leaned closer to one of the pedestals, careful not to touch it. "How does it work? Is it encoded into the crystal?" Lisha nodded. "In a way. The crystals resonate with our voice tones. Each Iridani has a unique vibration pattern. When we speak, the crystals absorb the sound waves and convert them into these forms." Kale folded his arms across his chest, his amber eyes glinting with interest. "And you can read this? Even when it's moving like that?" "It's not as complex as it looks," Lisha replied. "Once you understand the structure, the patterns become second nature." Davin chuckled. "Second nature for you, maybe. For me, it just looks like floating art. Beautiful, but completely incomprehensible." "Perhaps," Lisha said with a small smile, "but that's why you're here, to learn." Vayer, who had remained silent until now, crossed his arms and stepped forward. "You claim to want understanding, human. Then show us. Speak one of our words." Davin blinked, caught off guard. "Just pick a word?" "Yes," Vayer said, his tone cool. "A simple one will suffice. If you truly intend to connect with us, you should be willing to try." Lisha gave Vayer a measured look. "Vayer, you know it's not easy for their vocal cords." "I'm willing to try," Davin interrupted, glancing at Kale for reassurance. His friend nodded and Davin turned back to the glowing patterns. "Just tell me which one to say." Lisha hesitated for a moment before reaching out to one of the pedestals. A small, curved symbol appeared, pulsing faintly. "This is one of our words for greeting. It's pronounced Yen." Davin took a deep breath. Yen. "Like that." "Almost," Lisha said gently. "The tones must rise and fall. It's Yen." He repeated it slowly, mimicking her intonation. Lyy yen. Lisha's crystalline eyes brightened. Better. You're close. Veyer's expression softened slightly, though he didn't say anything. Kale raised an eyebrow and muttered, not bad for a first try. Encouraged, Davin turned to Lisha. Okay, what next? Another word. Lisha tilted her head, considering. Perhaps a phrase. A simple one. She brought forth another symbol, a more complex pattern this time. This means we walk together. It's a way of expressing shared purpose. Davin frowned in concentration. How's it pronounced? Scifi, Lisha said slowly. Emphasize the second syllable. Scifi. Davin nodded, mouthing the syllables. Scifi. He glanced at Kale. What do you think? Not bad, Kale said. You sound like you're auditioning for an alien choir, but it's definitely not bad. Davin laughed, and Lisha's lips quirked into a small smile. You learn quickly, she said. Veyer finally spoke up again. He learns quickly, but he is still a long way from understanding what these words mean. Memorizing sounds is not the same as grasping their depth. Davin's smile faded, but Lisha stepped in. It's a start, she said firmly. A single step, but an important one. Language is more than sound. It is connection. And every attempt matters. I didn't expect to master your language in a day, Davin said, meeting Veyer's gaze. But I'll keep trying. That's why I came. Kale clapped Davin on the shoulder. Besides, he's already ahead of me. I'm not even trying to pronounce these yet. You should, Lisha said, turning to Kale. You may find it easier than you think. Kale raised both hands. One step at a time. Let Davin be the guinea pig. I'll follow his lead. Davin gave him a sideways glance. Some wingman you are. Kale grinned. Hey, I'm just here to back you up. You're the one who brought the flower. Veyer exhaled, clearly unimpressed by their banter. This is not a game. The language holds the essence of who we are. If you treat it lightly. We're not treating it lightly, Davin said, his tone serious now. I get it. This means a lot to you. I'm here to learn, not mock it. If I stumble along the way, it's not because I don't care, it's because I'm human. Lisha regarded him carefully, then inclined her head. That is the right attitude to have. Effort and sincerity matter more than perfection. The group fell into a more comfortable rhythm after that. Lisha introduced new phrases while Kale finally gave in and tried pronouncing a few words himself, though not without cracking a few self-deprecating jokes. Veyer remained watchful, offering corrections where needed but holding his sharper comments in check. The strange library of light began to feel less intimidating as they spent more time there. As they worked together, Davin noticed small shifts in Lisha's demeanor. She seemed more at ease, her movements less guarded. Kale, too, appeared more engaged, asking questions about the meaning behind certain words and how they connected to Iridani culture. Even Veyer, though still aloof, seemed less openly hostile. The process of learning, halting, awkward, but genuine, was slowly bringing them closer. When they finally stepped out of the chamber, the light had changed. The city's glow was softer now, the ambient hues shifting in a subtle cycle that signaled a change in time. Davin stretched and looked over at Kale. Well, that was enlightening. Pun intended? Kale quipped, raising an eyebrow. Always, Davin said with a grin. Lisha tilted her head, her expression curious. A pun. Kale grinned. Wordplay. Humans do it a lot. It's like using a word in a way that gives it a double meaning. Like light, it's both the glowing stuff here and the idea of learning something new. Lisha's lips curved faintly. An interesting concept. Iridani language does not rely on double meanings. Our words must remain clear, precise. Well, Davin said it's not just about clarity. Sometimes it's about making someone smile. Or laugh. Lisha considered that for a moment, then nodded. Perhaps there is value in that as well. Veyer made a faint sound of disapproval but said nothing. The four of them began walking again, the crystal towers of the city glimmering faintly in the distance. So, Kale said, breaking the silence, what's next? More language lessons? Lisha glanced over at him. Perhaps. But there is more to our culture than words. If you truly wish to understand us, you must see how we live, how we interact. That is the only way you can learn who we are. Davin nodded. I'm ready. Just point me in the right direction. Lisha's gaze lingered on him for a moment and then she turned, leading them down a wide, shimmering pathway. As they followed her, the tension that had marked their first meeting began to fade. Language might still be a barrier, but step by step, they were finding ways to bridge it together. Chapter 3, Bridging the Gap. Davin stood in awe as Lisha led him and Kale into the heart of the Iridani city's bustling marketplace. Unlike the quiet, crystal halls they had seen before, this area was alive with movement and sound. Iridani traders lined the curved walkways, their stalls glowing faintly as they showcased their wares. Transparent orbs filled with iridescent liquids hung from the walls, shifting colors as customers passed. The air buzzed with a language that still sounded like a song to Davin's ears, melodic tones rising and falling as the locals bargained and exchanged goods. "This is where we conduct most of our daily commerce," Lisha explained, gesturing to the myriad stalls. "Our trade relies on trust, not contracts. Once an agreement is made, it is kept." Kale looked around, his amber eyes scanning the crowd. "No written records? No ledgers?" Lisha shook her head. "We have little need for such things. Our words are our bond." Davin raised an eyebrow. "Must be nice. Back on Earth, trust isn't always enough. People rely on contracts to keep everything clear. Yet contracts can be broken," Lisha countered. "A society built on trust is less fragile." Kale glanced at Davin with a smirk. "She's got you there." "I'm just saying it's different," Davin replied, trying not to grin. He turned back to Lisha. "So how do you handle disputes? I mean, if someone doesn't hold up their end of a deal." Lisha paused, considering. "It rarely happens. When it does, the community steps in. Reputation means everything. To lose it is to lose your place here." "Sounds effective," Kale said, running a hand through his short hair. "Still, I can't imagine trying to operate a trade system without any kind of records. Back on my colony, we have data streams for everything. Transactions, inventories, production cycles, it's all tracked." "We track what matters," Lisha replied. "Our methods may not be familiar to you, but they have served us well." As they walked through the marketplace, Lisha stopped at a stall displaying delicate, glowing strands woven into intricate patterns. The Iridani merchant behind the counter greeted her with a warm, melodic phrase, then glanced curiously at Davin and Kale. "They are my guests," Lisha said in her own language, her voice soft and reassuring. "Humans seeking to understand our ways." The merchant nodded, then held out a shimmering strand. Lisha accepted it, holding it up for Davin and Kale to see. "This is a ceremonial ribbon," she explained. "It is used in our bonding ceremonies, what you might call marriages. Each ribbon is unique, representing the connection between two individuals." Davin studied the ribbon, the intricate patterns seeming to shift under the light. "Beautiful," he murmured. Lisha's lips curved into a small smile. "It is more than decoration. Each strand is woven with memories. The pair who receives it will speak their vows, and the ribbon will capture their words. Over time, it will hold the essence of their bond." Kale raised an eyebrow. "How does it do that?" "The weaving process involves certain resonances," Lisha said, her voice becoming more technical. "The ribbon reacts to the tones of the speakers, binding their emotions into the fabric." Davin nodded slowly. "That's incredible. We don't have anything like that." "You have rings," Lisha pointed out. "Sure, but those are just symbols. They don't change or grow with time." "Then perhaps your symbols remain static while ours evolve." Kale leaned in, studying the ribbon more closely. "So, you're saying this thing actually remembers the emotions of the people who wear it?" "Precisely," Lisha said. "It is a living record of their connection." Davin chuckled. "I feel like every time you show us something, it just makes me realize how far behind we are." "You're not behind," Lisha said, her tone gentle. "You simply have a different path. Understanding that is the first step to bridging our differences." They moved on, passing stalls filled with glowing crystals, intricate metalwork, and shimmering textiles. The marketplace had a rhythm to it, a natural flow that felt almost organic. Vendors called out in their melodic tones, customers replied with nods or smiles, and transactions were completed without the clinking of coins or the beeping of scanners. It was a world built on trust, and despite his initial skepticism, Davin found himself intrigued. At one stall, an Iridani artist worked on a delicate sculpture made from a translucent material that seemed to change shape as the is forgiving. It will return to its original form if you make a mistake. Kale grinned and nudged him. "Go on, Davin. Let's see what you can do." With a deep breath, Davin stepped forward. The artist handed him a small tool, then gestured to the shimmering material. Davin mimicked the movements he'd seen, carefully pressing the tool against the surface. To his surprise, the material responded smoothly, forming a gentle curve. "Not bad," Kale said, leaning over to get a better look. "Maybe you missed your calling as a sculptor." "Doubt it," Davin said with a laugh. He handed the tool back to the artist, who made a series of quick, graceful adjustments. In moments, the sculpture was whole again, its original form restored. Lisha spoke a few words to the artist, who nodded and held out the finished piece. "They say you may keep it as a gift," she said. "Really?" Davin asked. "That's thanks. I mean, thank you." He accepted the sculpture carefully, as though it might dissolve in his hands. "It's beautiful." As they left the stall, Kale turned to Lisha. You know, for a society built on trust, you all seem remarkably generous. Lisha tilted her head, her gaze thoughtful. Generosity and trust are intertwined. When you give without fear, you strengthen the bonds between individuals. That is what allows our society to thrive. Davin glanced at Kale. Maybe we could learn a thing or two from that. Maybe, Kale said, though his tone was more reserved. It's not that simple, though. Not everywhere works the way this place does. True, Lisha agreed. But understanding each other's differences is the first step. You may not adopt our ways, but you can respect them. As the marketplace began to quiet, the light in the city shifted once more. Lisha led them to a small, open plaza where the air was filled with the sound of gentle, chiming bells. The three of them sat on a low, curved bench, the glowing sculptures around them casting soft shadows. Today was interesting, Davin said, holding the sculpture in his hands. It's a lot to take in, but I feel like I'm starting to understand, a little. That's all we can ask, Lisha said. Understanding takes time. But every step we take together brings us closer. Kale leaned back against the bench, looking up at the glowing spires. You know, for all the differences between us, there's something familiar here. The way people interact. The way they value trust. Maybe it's not as alien as it seems. Lisha nodded. Perhaps that is the key. Seeing not only the differences but the similarities. It is not always about changing who you are. It is about finding common ground. Davin smiled, turning the small sculpture in his hands. I think we're getting there. Chapter 4, A Flower's True Meaning. A soft, silvery glow bathed the room as Lisha led Davin and Kale into what she called the Chamber of Rituals. The walls shimmered with a faint, living light and the ceiling rose high above, adorned with a swirling mosaic of glass-like tiles. In the center, a pedestal held a single, unassuming bloom encased in crystalline glass. The sight was striking in its simplicity. This was not just a flower. It was the flower Lisha's connection to her first meeting with Davin. Davin let out a low whistle, his boots echoing softly on the smooth floor as he approached the pedestal. I wasn't expecting to see this again, he said, his voice almost reverent. Lisha gave him a small, enigmatic smile. It seemed appropriate. You once asked what the flower meant. Today, I will tell you. Kale crossed his arms, his amber eyes darting between Davin and the flower. I don't know if I've ever seen you look so serious, Davin. You normally can't keep from cracking a joke. Yeah, well, Davin replied, glancing back at him, this isn't exactly the time for a wisecrack. Lisha placed a hand on the edge of the pedestal. This bloom is not just a gesture. To us, it is a symbol of unity. In our culture, presenting a flower to someone is a way of saying, I wish to walk beside you. It is more than a greeting. It is an offer of trust, of companionship. Davin shifted his weight, processing her words. I had no idea, he said after a pause. Back on Earth, a flower can mean a lot of things. It can be romantic or it can just mean, hey, this reminded me of you. But here, Lisha continued, it is specific. It is a sign that we choose to be connected. To stand together. When you gave me this flower, Davin, you spoke a language we did not expect to hear from a human. Davin rubbed the back of his neck, his usual confidence faltering under her gaze. I didn't know it meant that much. I just thought it was a nice gesture. Something to show that I wasn't here to start trouble. Kale smirked. You've always been good at surprising people. Lisha stepped closer, her crystalline eyes fixed on Davin. Surprising, yes. And now you understand why I accepted it. Why I kept it. It was not just the flower, it was what it represented. A willingness to connect, despite our differences. Davin's voice softened. That's all I ever wanted. A chance to understand. For a moment, they stood in silence, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. Kale, sensing the change in mood, glanced away and busied himself examining the intricate designs on the chamber's walls. He knew better than to interrupt. Lisha moved even closer, her hand hovering just inches from Davin's. You may not have known the meaning of the flower, but your actions spoke clearly. And now I see that your intent was true. Davin looked down at her hand, then back up at her face. I guess it's one of those universal things. You don't have to speak the same language to say you care. To say you want to get along. A small, almost shy smile touched Lisha's lips. Perhaps you were right. Kale coughed lightly, breaking the moment. So, is there a next step here? Or are we just going to stand around and admire the flower all day? Lisha turned toward him, her expression composed once more. The next step is up to all of us. If we wish to build something lasting, we must continue to learn from one another. To share our customs, our experiences. Kale raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a long process. It will be, Lisha agreed. But worthwhile. Davin nodded slowly. I'm in. I mean, we've come this far. No point stopping now. Kale gestured to the glowing walls. So what's next? More history lessons? Another language tutorial? Lisha hesitated, then looked at Davin. Perhaps we begin with something simpler. A custom we can all share. It doesn't need to be grand, just a gesture. Something that says we are committed to walking this path together. Davin thought for a moment, then snapped his fingers. Back on Earth, when people want to show they're working together, they sometimes plant a tree. It's a symbol of growth, of starting something that will last. Lisha considered this, her eyes thoughtful. A tree. Yes, that could work. We have a species here that thrives in all environments. It is resilient, enduring. To plant such a tree together would carry meaning. Kale nodded. I like it. Simple, but it says a lot. Lisha turned to Davin. Then let us do that. We will plant this tree and we will nurture it as we will nurture our connection. Davin grinned. Sounds like a plan. As they left the chamber, the flower encased in glass remained behind, a silent reminder of the day they took their first step toward understanding. But now there would be something new, something living, to mark the path they had chosen. And though none of them could see the future, they knew they would face it together, one step at a time. Chapter 5, A Fragile Connection. The sunlight on Eridani was softer than that on Earth. It diffused through the crystalline trees in shades of pink and gold, casting warm reflections onto the plaza where Lisha, Davin, and Kale stood. A small, carefully prepared plot of soil had been laid out, bordered by carved stones that shimmered faintly in the light. The air carried the faint scent of mineral-rich earth and a breeze that whispered softly through the transparent leaves above them. So this is it, Kale said, his voice carrying a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. He shifted his weight, folding his arms as he glanced at the young tree in Lisha's hands. We plant that and suddenly everyone's best friends? Lisha's gaze held steady, though her expression was calm. It is not the act itself that holds the meaning. It is the intent behind it. By planting this together, we affirm our commitment to nurturing the connection we have begun. Davin, standing to her left, crouched down and ran his fingers through the soil. It's more symbolic than anything, he said. A reminder that trust and understanding need time and care to grow. Right, Lisha? She inclined her head. Exactly. The tree will serve as a living record of our shared purpose. Kale's mouth quirked in a half-smile. Just don't expect me to start singing Kumbaya. Davin snorted. Trust me, nobody's asking for that. The three of them fell into a rhythm as they prepared the ground. Lisha showed them how to measure the proper depth for the roots, her voice steady as she explained the importance of stability for the young tree. Davin listened carefully, following her instructions, while Kale occasionally chimed in with wry comments that lightened the mood. You really know a lot about plants, huh? Davin asked, glancing up at Lisha as she demonstrated how to loosen the soil. I spent much of my early life studying the ecology of our world, she replied. The balance of nature is vital to us. Every plant, every creature contributes to the harmony of our environment. Kale raised an eyebrow. And you're saying humans aren't exactly known for harmony? Lisha's expression softened and she gave a faint smile. I am saying that different species have different ways of interacting with their surroundings. Some seek control while others strive for balance. Both approaches have their merits and their challenges. Davin nodded, his fingers sifting through the soil. Fair enough. Earth's got its share of problems, but we're trying to figure it out. Kale smirked. Some of us more than others. You want to take over, Kale? Davin shot back, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. No thanks. I'll stick to observing. Kale leaned against a nearby stone, his amber eyes glinting with amusement. It's entertaining enough watching you get dirt under your nails. Lisha's gaze moved between them, her crystalline eyes reflecting the sunlight. Humor is important, she said softly. It keeps things in perspective. Davin looked up at her, his grin fading into a thoughtful expression. You've got a point. If we can't laugh a little, what's the point of doing any of this? Kale straightened and gestured toward the small tree. All right, let's see how you two handle planting this thing. Together, Lisha and Davin carefully placed the tree into the prepared hole. Lisha guided Davin's hands, showing him how to position the roots so they would spread evenly. Kale stayed back, watching silently, his earlier sarcasm replaced by quiet curiosity. Hold it steady, Lisha murmured, her hands brushing against Davin's as they adjusted the tree's position. Like this. Got it, Davin replied, his voice steady. He followed her lead, pressing the soil gently around the roots to secure the tree in place. As they worked, their movements became more synchronized, their unspoken understanding growing with each step. Lisha's calm precision balanced Davin's cautious enthusiasm. Even Kale, who often played the skeptic, seemed less inclined to interrupt. The tree, small and fragile, stood upright between them, its translucent leaves catching the light like delicate shards of glass. There, Lisha said softly, stepping back. It is done. Davin rose to his feet, brushing his hands against his trousers. Not bad, he said, tilting his head to study the tree. Kind of makes me wonder what it'll look like in a few years. It will grow tall and strong, Lisha replied. Its branches will spread wide and its roots will delve deep into the earth. Kale crossed his arms and smirked. Sounds like a pretty big payoff for a few minutes of digging. Lisha glanced at him, her lips curving into a faint smile. The act of planting is only the beginning. What matters is what we do afterward, how we care for it, how we ensure it thrives. Davin looked at her, his expression serious. And that's the real challenge, isn't it? It's not just about planting a tree. It's about making sure it has what it needs to grow. Precisely, Lisha said. It is the same with our connection. This moment marks a new beginning, but it is up to us to nurture it. Kale gave a small, grudging nod. I guess I can't argue with that. They stood in silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. The tree, small and delicate, seemed almost insignificant in the grand plaza. Yet to them it represented something far greater, a shared commitment to building something together despite their differences. Davin broke the silence. So what now? Do we just check on it every so often? Make sure it's still standing. Lisha tilted her head, considering. We will tend to it regularly. Ensure it has the proper light, water, and nutrients. Over time it will grow stronger. Kale rolled his eyes. Great. A long-term project. Davin grinned. Sounds like just your kind of thing. Lisha's gaze softened as she looked at both of them. This tree will stand as a reminder of what we have begun. It may seem small now, but one day it will provide shade, shelter, and beauty. And when others see it, they will know that we chose to work together to create something lasting. Kale snorted. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Davin glanced at him. You'll see it, Kale. Just give it time. As they walked away from the newly planted tree, the sunlight continued to play across the plaza, reflecting off the stones and casting intricate patterns on the ground. The tree, no longer just a sapling, now stood as a quiet reminder of the choice they had made, a choice to connect, to grow, and to move forward together. Chapter 6, Building a New Path. Davin ran his hand across the smooth, polished surface of the bench where he and Lisha sat. The garden around them had grown noticeably in recent weeks, the crystalline trees stretching their shimmering branches higher into the air. Nearby, Kale leaned against a pillar, arms crossed, watching the two of them with an air of amused skepticism. He had always been the one to call things as he saw them, and today was no different. So, Kale began, his tone light but edged with curiosity, is this where you tell us what all this sitting and staring is going to accomplish? Lisha tilted her head, her crystalline gaze focused on Davin. Sometimes reflection is the most valuable step, she said softly. After all that we have learned and shared, it is worth considering how to move forward. Kale raised an eyebrow. And by reflection, you mean sitting quietly and what, meditating? Davin chuckled. Come on, Kale. Give it a rest. Not everything has to be action-packed. Sure, Kale replied with a grin. But you know me. I like a little clarity. A plan. A clear next step. Lisha glanced at Kale, her expression calm. You value structure. That is understandable. And while the future may not be fully clear, the intention is. And that is? Kale prompted. To continue building, Lisha said simply. We have taken steps toward understanding one another. The tree we planted is just the beginning. There is much more to nurture, connections, projects, shared endeavors. It is not about rushing to the end, but about ensuring every step forward is meaningful. Kale let out a low whistle. You're good at this big picture stuff, aren't you? I have lived long enough to see what small steps can lead to, Lisha said with a faint smile. Davin stretched his arms and stood, shaking the stiffness from his legs. Big picture or not, it's nice to know we're not just spinning our wheels. You're right, Lisha, every step matters, even the small ones. Kale shrugged, pushing himself off the pillar. Fine. I'll give you that. Just don't expect me to sit still for too long. Reflection isn't exactly my strong suit. Davin laughed, clapping him on the back. You'd surprise yourself, Kale. Maybe sitting still for a few minutes won't kill you. Lisha rose gracefully, brushing a speck of dust from her flowing garment. Perhaps the next step should involve something practical. A shared project that combines our skills. Davin, you've shown an interest in our cultural artifacts. Perhaps you would like to learn more about our methods of preservation. I'd love that, Davin said. Your approach to keeping history alive is incredible. I could spend hours just watching those holographic panels in the library. Kale smirked. You've got the patience for it. I'd probably lose my mind after about 20 minutes. Then perhaps you could focus on something more active, Lisha suggested. Our ecological restoration efforts could benefit from your input. You have a keen eye for detail. Kale rubbed his chin, considering. Ecological restoration, huh? What's that look like here? Lisha gestured to the trees around them. It involves ensuring that our environment remains balanced. We introduce new species, monitor their interactions, and maintain the harmony between our natural and artificial systems. Kale let out a low hum. Sounds complicated. It can be, Lisha admitted, but I believe you would find it rewarding. Davin grinned. See, Kale? Something for both of us. I'll be the history nerd and you can be the eco-engineer. Kale gave him a sideways glance. Eco-engineer, huh? You just made that up. Yeah, but it fits, Davin said with a chuckle. Seriously, though, you'd be good at it. Kale shrugged, though a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. All right, fine. I'll give it a shot. But if I end up covered in alien soil, you're going to hear about it. Davin spread his arms. It's a deal. Lisha looked between the two of them, her gaze warm. Then it seems we have a plan. Each of you will take a step toward deepening your understanding of our world. Kale pointed at her. You're not off the hook either, Lisha. What about you? What's your next step? She seemed momentarily surprised by the question, but then her lips curved into a thoughtful smile. My next step is to learn more about you. About humans and their ways. I have spent much time observing, but there is still much I do not know. Perhaps you could teach me about your customs, your stories. Sure, Davin said, nodding. We can trade stories. I'll tell you about Earth and you can share more about Eridani. Kale smirked. Just don't start singing old Earth ballads. You're bad enough in the shower. Lisha raised an eyebrow, her tone curious. What is a shower ballad? Davin groaned, shooting Kale a mock glare. Kale, you're the worst. Lisha's lips twitched into an amused smile. It seems there is much for me to learn. You're in for a wild ride, Kale said with a laugh. The three of them stood together in the garden, the soft light casting long shadows around them. The path ahead was not entirely clear, but for the first time it felt like they were all walking it together. Their differences, once so daunting, had become a source. Less fragile and a lot more real.